The last week, War Thunder on their devlog page put out about 5 to 6 new things they want to put out in a couple new patches, and including the mouse tank, which has been highly anticipated and awaited for a long time now. And I'm going to give the word to Slickby first because he has already made 2 videos on the mouse, and we'll think that he is going to be the person that can talk about it the most in the beginning anyway.
Yeah, so the mouse, or the Panzerkampfwagen 8. Did I say that right, Sherman?
Yeah,
that was pretty good.
That's fine.
That was
Close
pretty
enough.
good. Well, anyway, this thing is fucking heavy. It weighs 188 tons. So, obviously, no matter how big the engine is, it's not going to go fast. And considering it has a 1,200 horsepower engine, you'd think it'd go fast, but no. It goes 13 kilometers an hour. A lot of people think that the tank isn't going to be good in the game. That it's going to be artied, not artied, but bombed. Well, yeah, I guess it could be artied. It can't really get out of the area fast. It's just going to get flanked. It's just going to be a big hunk of metal that can't do anything. I'm one of the people who disagrees with that. It has the same gun as the Ag Tiger with a coaxial 75 that carries 200 rounds. With HE, if you shoot 75 millimeter rounds into people's gun mantlets, and you'll knock out their gun, and then you can kill them with the 128. I feel like that's going to be very effective for experienced mouse drivers who know how to range their guns. Also, the armor on the front, it's almost impenetrable by anything in the game, aside from an M103 with heat shells that has very good aim. So it's going to be a tough nut to crack. I don't know what you guys think about it though.
I'm a bit skeptical about it, to be honest, because the tank is highly situational. It has good frontal armor, but in a tank game like War Thunder, where the maps are like massive, you don't even see the one that's on your side for like 4 kilometers next to you. You could be flanked easily without even seeing anything coming. I don't know. Like, if you're a good tank player, you could manage, but I don't think many people will be able to play this tank correctly in War Thunder. That is.
Well, it is. However, it's like we just said, how it's a very heavy tank. Just to put it into perspective, the tank weighs more than 3.5 Tiger tanks. Like the original, the OG Tiger.
Yeah, the
weighs
OG.
55. The OG Tiger. The OG Tiger weighs 55 tons. And the mouse weighs. It depends on how the ammo, etc., and the fuel, but it weighs in at least at 180 tons. So that's more than 3.5 Tigers. So I can see this vehicle, even with the horsepower it has, maneuver very slowly. And we all know there are situations where you're like in a tank destroyer or in a heavy tank, and you're trying to maneuver on soft ground. That's a bitch, but I don't want to even imagine how much of a bitch it's going to be trying to maneuver a mouse on the beach of jungle, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I would like to know is, you see the picture of that tank, and it's got its turret, the end of the turret is right at the back of the tank. Can it go 360 degrees with its turret, or can it only go to the sides?
Yeah, it can go
It can,
360 degrees.
But that turret reverse is going to be super slow.
Oh, yeah. Another thing with that tank is the side scraping is going to be great on city maps because the turret is in the back. You know what I mean? You have spaced armor all on the sides. So the way the tracks work, they're inside of these huge metal sheets, and then they still have the side of the tank inside of it.
Makes sense.
What I mean? So if you're angled side scraping, right, the only thing that's going to get you out of that position is a flank.
Or an airplane.
Or an airplane, yeah. But we know if you're in a tight city map,
P-47.
if you're in a tight city map playing sim, it's a lot harder for these planes
Oh,
to
yeah.
But
kill you.
you would have to get there first.
Yeah, that's the
like,
thing.
Probably
That's
the
the
first
thing.
50 minutes you won't get there.
Another thing I found interesting was I thought that the tank was going to be gray, but Gaijin put camo on it, which is going to make it a bit harder for aircraft to see it, especially in the sim modes. You know what I mean? Like, let's say you're riding along the tree line. Yeah, you're going to be kicking up dust, but can the plane really spot you with that tan green camo on it? It's not a normal camo either. It's like it has green in it too.
A free camo is something different for War Thunder as well.
Yeah.
I think they
pretty
actually
good.
thought about it before they put it in the game. Like,
Yeah.
it should have some kind of air cover type of camouflage.
And about the speed, it's funny you mentioned that. I can't recall the tank. It's been a while since I played Ground Forces, to be honest. There's one tank that I drove a lot, and it's very slow. I'm just gonna say the speed of the mouse It's somewhere between. It depends again on the engine and on the fuel that they put into it. Which version they're going to put in. There was a couple of experimental versions, but it's going to be no more than 15 kilometers an hour, and that's not even up a hill. Like I don't want to climb even the slightest incline with this. It's going to be a big issue.
It's going to be annoying.
It depends on what they put on as his top speed, because maybe you could go like I don't know, like in World of Tanks I know that they can go at about 30 downhill, but like if they put the cap on about 20 in this game, you're gonna take a long time getting up and down the hill. And I think like to be more realistic, they actually are gonna put it in as some kind of a nerf for the tank, for its armor. So I think it's gonna be even slower than it would be in World of Tanks. So that's pretty. You have to have a lot of patience to play that tank. That's for sure.
Another thing about this tank though is most tanks can't penetrate its side and rear at the same tier that it's at. It has 190 millimeters of like space side armor and 190 at the back, and the turret all around is 220.
Definitely insane.
And
just like,
the mantlet, apparently, this is something I'm reading from a reliable source, is 460 millimeters.
Yep.
That is even an M103. If you're just using the gun depression, which I'm not sure we'll have a lot, but if you're like watching over a hill or an obstacle, even the M103 with heat rounds would even be able to penetrate you, because he only has 50% of what he needs to penetrate you. So that's amazing gun mantlet power. That's
but you talked about that, right, Flick?
Yeah,
yeah. You talked about people probably gonna use HE on the mantlet to actually bounce the explosion into the engine deck.
Ooh, that's a very smart one.
Yeah. But the thing with that is, so the mouse has like this like not a diamond, like a triangle of sheet of armor coming up, right? It's like a deflector, and that covers actually some of the bottom of the turret. And the way the turret's shaped, it's like half circle. If you don't hit the bottom of that, the HE isn't going to splash down, it's going to splash up.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
you think they're going to model it into the game, like actual armor?
Yeah, I think so. It looked like it's like it was really prevalent on the pictures.
By the picture, like you can see with that armor and what's covering the tracks, even though it's like because of how slow it is, you're going to be scared of planes. You're gonna need a big fucking bomb to take those tracks off.
Oh yeah.
Like a 500 pound next to it is gonna do nothing. You're gonna need 1,000 pounds to destroy that thing.
Yeah.
So and they're quite hard to aim. Like when you're coming in fast, trying to avoid AA.
Especially in Sim.
Especially in Sim. So you gotta hit it, and if you hit the sides, it's not really gonna take that much damage because of that side armor. So it's going to be very difficult, even though it's slow, to take out.
Yeah. I wanted to say one more thing before we should move on to the next subject. Is I just linked a picture in TeamSpeak, and this is obviously on the dev blog, so everyone can see it. But I mean, it almost looks as if the turret of the mouse is a little bit smaller, or maybe as big as a T-34-76.
Yeah.
That's enormous.
Something to that,
it's like 4 tanks combined into one.
Yeah, it's really big. The last thing I want to say is, touching on that bomb thing before we move on, is a lot of planes have 250 kilogram bombs, right? That is not going to do shit unless you drop it right on top of the turret. It is not.
Exactly.
It will bounce off the side, I'm pretty sure. Like that, it has so much armor.
That's why you're going to need that P-47's 1,000 pound, and that makes it very heavy in simulator.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like it's susceptible to bombing, but if you think about it, if they don't hit those bombs, they probably just waste their bombs. So I don't think that a simulator pilot would even go for a mouse if he could look for a softer target.
That is a very good one. Like you actually scare them because you're like it's like it's like it's like a turtle. Like, don't come for me because I have a lot of armor. Yeah, that's
another thing.
A very good thing.
If you think about the way the map's gonna spawn, right? Let's say you're playing that sim realistic battle, or like not realistic, but like that sim, but it's a real. You spawn, all your tanks take off. You're playing with. This is probably going to be our next topic. The Leopard 1 is on your team too. So he goes 65 kilometers an hour, right? So he takes off. They're fucking going. you're going 13. A plane flying, right? And you look and you see all these tanks in a line driving. You're gonna focus on them, not the fucking mouse in the back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, let's say you get into cover first, like you get into the tree line. You're gonna be hidden until you get to the action. Sure, it's gonna be a boring drive. It's gonna be like,
But especially in a multiplayer game like War Thunder, where you actually want as much XP and lions as possible. You won't go for one target if you could kill multiple with
Exactly.
the same bomb.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to
could
think
scare away
about
people.
people. They're going to
Yeah.
be thinking about, oh, is this going to get me more
Yeah,
RP, or is that
exactly.
going to maybe get me
Yeah.
RP?
Exactly.
They don't care about the difference between having a mouse on the battlefield or not. They're
But-
going to think about their money.
and
But
the
talking-
Germans have very good AA that could cover it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
the
Kugelblitz.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
that'll
so
be
talking
Kugel
about
and
bombers
Napoleon.
though makes me want to go to the next topic. Although the next topic actually has two new additions, or actually three, but two main ones, which is the cockpit lights and the gun parts for D5 Stuka. Now with the cockpit lights, it's a cool addition, but I don't want to talk about it too long because it's just cockpit lights for night battles, which you don't see often. I can see that being interesting for cinematics. Or for like more like realistic pictures, or like the cockpit for a thumbnail, or just for like a cool picture competition on forums. But other than that, I mean, unless you guys have like a very amazing feature that that now is possible because of the cockpit lights.
Well, you say that, but in simulated combat, well, even in real life, that having that cockpit light on could mean life or death, because if you see a light in the sky, it's going to stand out a lot more than a black silhouette. You know what I mean? You're going to be attracted to that light. So say they add this to more than just the Ju-87, because there's been situations in real life what I've read up about where Hurricanes have been going after bombers after the Battle of Britain, looking for them until they've turned on their lights. They couldn't see them at
True.
all.
Ah.
True.
The bombers
Yeah.
put their lights on, and then they suddenly went in and slaughtered them. So German pilots are actually scared of turning on their lights. So it could, if they carry on adding this as a feature, it could be quite good.
If that is,
It's not
if
just
you-
in the Stuka. I just want to point that
No,
out.
yeah, no, but that's the thing is we don't know whether this is going to be something that is just going to be visible for you, or that's
Yeah.
going to be visible from the outside.
exactly.
So that's something. It sounds awesome, and it sounds like a really cool thing. That's spot a plane, especially in sim, because sim you can like a little black dot, or like the just a big illuminated cockpit from far away. It's going to be a big difference, but we don't know whether that's actually a feature or not.
I have two things to say about that. Well, one, it's good that it's in the game, even if it's not that useful, because it comes standard on games like IL-2, which are really hardcore sims, and I feel
True.
like it needs to be in the game, along with turning the reticle off so you can see better through your optic glass, and opening the cockpit. Those are just standard things that are in other sims. And two, German planes in particular don't have lights; they have glowing dials. So I'm wondering if they add that, because like the 109s had glowing dials instead of like they had a light too, but
That would
Basically,
be an
like
advantage.
normal
instead
cars,
of,
basically.
Yeah, instead of turning a light on, the dials glowed a little bit green, and
Yeah, but
you could
you know
see them a
what?
lot better.
Like if they implement the lights into the cockpit, you need to know that like if you're flying at night and you want to spot targets, you're not going to turn on lights inside your cockpit, because that would limit the how well you can see people in the
Mhm.
dark. So
Exactly.
like that's a bit. If they put that into the game as well, they need to know that when they actually use it, if they actually want to go for the realism effect, the pilots could actually spot less targets because they turned on the lights
True,
inside
yeah.
the cockpits.
Well,
So-
one more thing. There you actually can already disable the gun sights. I'm pretty sure there's a button for it, although I
Really?
forgot which button it is. Yeah, I think it's like colon or something. I don't know what's called in
Never
English,
seen
but there's a. I mean, I started it on accident. It's like, holy shit, how'd I get it back? But I guess that's the cockpit lights. It's a new feature, and there's another feature that comes with it, which we'll talk about when we get to that article. But this one is something that. Like the Stuka D5, I mean, we all know this is basically one of the best troll machines of War Thunder,
Yeah.
with the 220 mils, with 1,000 rounds in total.
Arcade
and
blaster.
they're adding two different gun pods, one which is kind of weird to me the first time I read it, but they're adding two different gun pod sets. One which adds 12 7.92 machine guns, and one that adds 4 cannons, basically turning the Stuka with the first gun pod, turning it into a Typhoon Mark 1A or Typhoon or a Hurricane Mark 2 Plus, and the second one is basically turning your Stuka into a Focke-Wulf A5U2.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I just want to point out that these pictures are completely unrealistic unless he had an air spawn. There's no way a Stuka with this many gun pods is gonna climb this high.
No,
Yeah.
that's another thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
it wouldn't really matter because like if you would actually play this play in like a 4-man squad, and you would have the enemy team start diving on you, like even if the first guy went down, you would still have an entire enemy team to shoot down. Like the 3 others could totally rape the others that just wasted their altitude to go
That's
and hunt
true.
a Stuka that is very slow. At least that's what they think.
I'm interested
Until they see
in
it
how
gunpoint.
much it affects the turn, because the Stuka turn's amazing. Maybe it'll put it on par with other planes now, like the gun
Okay.
pods. Like, oh, I can't turn as well now. I can't out-turn you. Let me just turn with you.
Yeah.
Stuka, it'll be fun though.
Mm.
I could imagine how fast 4 of those with the 20 mils would mop up a whole ground unit, like everything. They
Yeah.
could kill pretty much everything.
Yeah, and a little inside information, somebody actually, I made a video on this, somebody actually Googled, or not Google, but somebody did research on this. I mean, maybe Google, I don't know, but he did research on this, and he posted like a 10 or 20 sentence thing. But what I got from that was that the gun pods with the machine guns, every machine gun, so every barrel, not every pod, but every barrel, there's 6 barrels obviously in one gun pod, every barrel is going to have between 200 and 400 rounds, depending on, of course, setting and that kind of stuff. So let's say an average of 300, that is 1,800 rounds per pod, which is obviously 3,600 rounds for the machine guns. And with the cannons, it would be either 250 or 325. So you can, that's just,
It's insane.
that's like 2,000 plus rounds with the cannons. That's
crazy.
amazing.
And-
You
It's
could mop up
scary.
all the ground targets.
Could
with that.
you, do you think you could change, are they different caliber 20s than the 20s that are in the wing?
No,
Because-
no, they're the MG 151s. They're like they're like the beast
The good
cannons.
ones.
They're the good ones. So
Yeah, but are they the same ones that are in the wings?
yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so
yeah.
you can't see. I was gonna say if you could change you could have air targets on your wing ones and ground targets on your pod
You can
ones.
probably.
Yeah,
that would
you
be
can.
good. You know
Maybe
what I
you
mean?
can. That depends, but
There's
I can see
actually-
I can see the first one being like when the machine guns. I can see the first one, that one being very effective in arcade. Maybe like if you load maybe APIT rounds on the machine guns or even stealth. And especially against ground targets in arcade, the Stuka with the 220s is good enough, but like you can mop up ground targets so fast now. And with the 20 mils, that one is going to be pretty good. I think if you load armor target belts, you can penetrate and kill light / sometimes medium tanks. That's going to be a really interesting ground attacker instead of the Duck or a
Yeah.
Stuka with bombs. This is going
It's
to
a
kill way
better
more
option.
tanks.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
especially the Duck. That's not even comparable
Well,
with
no,
this type of Stuka.
Exactly.
The normal duck isn't that great compared to this, especially, but the Dom duck is very good.
But it doesn't
Yeah.
get as much ammo. That's
It doesn't. It gets 13
Yeah, not
rounds,
much at
but
all.
the 75 is fantastic. As I'm seeing, I started playing it.
But-
It's high velocity. It's really high velocity. It takes out medium and heavy tanks really easily. So
It is the pack. I think it's the Pack 40 gun that they refitted to be available to put on a plane. So it's basically a Panther's gun,
yeah, it's a
but
really
a little
good
bit
gun.
different. So
Really
it's
good
that's really good. But the big shame is you don't get 2,000 rounds for that 75
No.
mil, which
No,
is
you don't.
awesome. But you need
We
a
can
giant like B-17
Yeah.
size plane to carry all the
A
ammo.
spooky
and 20
gunship.
bigger engines.
I don't
Yeah.
like
Awesome.
why. That's my question. Like, why would they do this now? What's the point? Is it like to get some hype out of it, like together with the mouse, or?
People asking in the forums for, hey, this plane, had 1 minute more fuel in real life, or had, more rounds. People. I mean, I don't mind those, especially when they can back it up with information. And now I cannot reproduce the exact forum post, but I've seen a lot of forum posts about the Stuka D5 being underpowered, and I suppose that the underpowered obviously meant that it wasn't realistically loaded out. So if you want a game that is trying to be to a certain degree very realistic, I don't mind them adding cool stuff like this, especially not to the D5, which is just an amazing cool plane.
Hmm. I think I just have bad memories. Like when the G2 used to have like no gun pods in the F4, I used to like it more than with the gun pod. So I hope they don't ruin the flight model of the Stuka by adding these.
Well,
Um,
I don't think there will be. I don't think there will be much of a flight model left with these two babies underneath. Jesus Christ!
Yeah.
This is a brick.
This is a brick.
It'll turn into the
still a
duck.
killable brick.
I hope you can take off still. That's
10-mile turn radius.
It's gonna be like I know like last thing I want to say about the Stuka is like I've flown a D5 a lot of times and it's a lot of fun. You know, you just drop the bomb, you just start flying and towards the enemy, and you always get an air start. Like you start like 3 or like something K, but after you dive down and you want to come back up, getting a 5-degree climb with the Stuka with WEP is already impossible, let alone if you add like a few, maybe, I have no idea, but maybe like 100 kilograms or more extra to that, and like even lesser aerodynamic, it's going to be very tough. So it's probably like going to be like a one-shot wonder where you get one dive and then it's going to be turn until somebody gets on your 6. Yeah, it's basically a glider.
Yeah.
The fact that they're adding all these upgrades for the Ju-87, it's like, I think one thing they're missing, what is massive, is that siren. Why don't they model that into the game? Because that would just be amazing.
The B2 Stuka, which is the first one, has the siren, and I think this is not something I researched, but I read somewhere again, is that the Germans, they use the B2 Stuka, which is famous for those black and white footage of like Stukas diving in France and in the early Blitzkrieg, but they took it out because at a certain point, people kind of, not really got used to it, but, they knew what it was. And they would rather have the surprise attack of, like, a Stuka bombing a T-34 or, shooting it with, like, with 37 gun pods, like the G-series. They preferred that over, warning the tanker, like, oh, my God, Stuka incoming! And then, they could, take a last-ditch maneuver.
But the first one does have it in-game.
Yeah, the first one actually has it. It doesn't sound like it does in the movies, but...
Oh, right, that's fair enough, then.
Yeah, I guess it wouldn't really be. Yeah, I guess it wouldn't be useful outside of the Blitzkrieg tactic. Like it was supposed to scare people more than actually doing damage to a city or.
Exactly. So okay, with that being done, there's something that Jaggers has been fucking like pushing us to talk about, which is the contrails. But first of all, is the adding of, well, I don't want to say heat, but people have been calling it shock waves or even sound waves, which I doubt it's sound waves, but heat/shock waves when you fire tank cannons. And obviously, like an IS-2 will have a bigger one than like a Panzer II. But they look pretty awesome, and there's not much you can say about it. You can like it or dislike it, I guess, or call it unrealistic or realistic. But it is cool, in my opinion. Like if you see like the footage they have, like a 7 or 8 second clip of an IS-2, I believe, with the 122 firing.
Yep.
Come on, it looks awesome. It's just tank
it's very
forward.
welcome. Yeah.
It can actually be like quite important because in simulated battles, you've got to use every little bit of advantage you can get. So if you see some smoke being kicked up from a gun being fired, there's going to be a tank around that area. Whereas if you're going to see heat and then more the heat haze and all that, it's going to add even more immersive effects into simulated mode.
It's something like seeing the scope glare of a sniper in a sniper game. Like it's something you can look out for. Even I think you could even see it from the sky, if I'm not mistaken.
Like
ooh, that'd be very good then for bomber pilots.
Yeah, if
definitely.
you see a forest which is green, and then suddenly you see a red wave, like you will
Exactly,
notice that. You will notice that right away. So that's kind of a disadvantage for tanks with a larger caliber cannon.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Slick's just headed off to the bathroom quickly.
That's all right. We'll no, but the thing is that's a very interesting thing like that they bring up is what you just bring up. It's like tanks will now be a little bit more visible when they fire their guns, and like the bigger the shell now, like it's just gonna look awesome. Like this is just pure tank / graphics porn.
Yeah.
It's just awesome. And it might not be realistic or not. There's a lot of people saying it is, other people saying it's not, and it should be sound waves, which obviously you can't see sound waves or whatever.
No,
but, I'm not an expert on that, so.
No. You shouldn't be. No, sound waves. No.
There we go. I mean, no, but
but it's a video game. It's you can have it as realistic as possible, and then but yeah, it's still got to be fun and entertaining.
Exactly, that's what I was looking
No
for.
matter
Fun.
how realistic you make it, it's still for entertainment purposes.
Yep.
It's not for teaching.
It's not? Oh, damn.
Nah.
I used this in
You're
my
learning-
history class. That's
You're learning
a
flight models, so
Hashtag meta ratings, but that's for later.
that's for later.
So now that contrails, now you said you were really looking forward to this, and
Absolutely.
it's something that I want to give my 2 cents here before we start talking about it. It is my memory, like my ideas, like when you say World War II air combat, the first image in my head, I cannot get it out of there, is a picture of like taken from the ground of like B-17s, like a 36 or like 48 plane formation with enormously long contrails, and then I think there's like 4 or 5 very fast movers, obviously 262s, and it's just such an iconic picture, and I'm never going to be able to find it,
Got the
obviously, but
exact same picture in my head, and that's exactly what you're talking about. There's even a clip on Fury where he's looking up and he's like, "Go give him hell, boys!" Or something
exactly
like that. He was his quote,
that
and you
kind
can
of
see
stuff. Like
all those B-17s going. It just looks awesome.
it's gonna look amazing.
Awesome and
it really
impressive.
does add it. It's
Yeah.
and like you can see in that little video where they're moving about and that, and it just makes the battle so much more immersive, and then that can actually be used for strategic purposes. So if you see some smoke going you see some smoke gone past your left or something, you can kind of guess where it's going to be without having to look around, kind of thing.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
It adds even more of an advantage in simulator. So it is really good.
Yeah, they're just finishing the game, really. Like
Exactly.
something that's supposed to be in there, but it doesn't really hurt the game if it's not there. But if it is there, it's a big
It's
plus.
just gonna be cool, and it's something that is gonna like just fly like just after taking off on Korea with your F9Fs or your Sabres or your MiGs, and just after you're taking off, you're about 3K or halfway into the battle, you just look around and you see like so many counters left and right, and that's just gonna be so iconic and
Exactly.
something that isn't really missed. Like I'm not gonna say like the game is bad or worse than it is when they add that, but it's just gonna look better, and if better is always good.
Yeah, it's very
Exactly.
welcome.
It's
It's
very
gonna
welcome.
it's gonna add to the realistic tank battles,
Immersion
too.
and realistic. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's gonna look great in cinematics and in thumbnails and pictures in general.
Yes, especially like with those 262s coming in all together with those.
Oh,
those
baby,
contracts, it's
yeah.
just
Yeah, it's
look
gonna be
absolutely
awesome.
beautiful.
Now we need rocket contrails.
Like now,
Yeah.
now you don't actually need to put on smoke.
Exactly.
If you want
Exactly,
to.
Guys,
yeah.
fake the contrails.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man. Also, another thing which is actually on the page itself is this is a quote. Now, ultra low graphics mode will look much better than it did before, and it will be rendered without any loss of performance for players, and in some cases will even improve it. So they're also working on improving, which is something I don't know how, because the War Thunder graphics model and the way it plays, it's so beautiful, and it just plays like a charm. It's such a great optimized game, like in terms of graphics and the way it runs, even on bad or not as good computers. And that is something that's really just admirable.
Yeah, that's what gives
They-
this game like so much opportunity to be even better than it is right now. It's so promising. If they just fix some things, it's really good. Just
I
because
just
of
hope-
the graphics details.
I hope the tank graphics get fixed.
Yeah.
Like I get not as good frames on tanks.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Like the frames do drop a lot between air combat and tank combat. So
Yeah.
like if they're working towards like increasing frames for lower tier computers and stuff like that, then you can imagine that they're going to be working towards just generally making it more optimized as possible. So that's
still
a
pretty
good
new.
sign.
Yeah.
They're trying to actually help the community. Realize that not everyone has $20 billion for a computer. Then that's a good sign for a video game.
Yeah.
Good as
Well-
for Russia.
Well, no, with tanks, that's one of the last things I want to say about the graphics thing is with tanks, obviously, with an airplane, it has to render like kilometers and kilometers and kilometers away, but that can just be like a very like tiny pixel which represents a tree. Whereas in
Yeah.
I was going to say World of Tanks, but like as in tanks or Ground Forces, like it has to render like 100 or even more trees, and they have to be pretty detailed, not to
with
make it look
leaves.
worse. So I think that's a big difference between the amazingly high and good running air combat, with the FPS and the graphics, and for most people who run, for example, air, the airplay or the planes, airplay, what the fuck, airplanes at like 100 frames, they'll only get like 60 or 50 in ground vehicles, which still kind of makes sense
Exactly.
because it's more intense. Talking about ground vehicles, however, though, there's a new thing that they're adding. Actually, two new things. It's two new views for ground forces. One of which I can see being amazingly useful from a tactical perspective, which is obviously the binoculars. And the second one, the first thing I thought about was, imagine this: custom battles, T50s, driver view, simulator battle drag races.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
If you actually would be in someone's smoke trail, like
That would be
dust
beast.
gets knocked up, like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, like you just can't see for all that fucking dust. that's sticking up.
Exactly.
That'd just be awesome.
Yeah.
And-
Like Mad Max Part 2,
Exactly, yeah. So like the driver view, obviously, it's going to be something that is not, no one in arcade or realistic is really going to use it, because why should you? But in Sim, I've had occasions where it's like, because obviously you cannot really see right in front of your tank, because it's been like, wait, why am I stuck? What's happening? Why can I move? And you can
When
switch
you-
to your driver view and just get around that stupid little like dent in the road, or like rock that's right in front of your tank that you can't see. And I think that's going to be one of the more main uses, of course,
Yeah.
also like cinematic use and
You
stuff.
can keep
but-
your gun level now too. Like when I'm driving in Sim, I always have to aim my gun down to see where I'm going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
yeah,
you can
that
just
makes
keep your
sense.
gun level on an even plane, and you get faster shots off at people.
Yep.
What I think is, like, it really is one of my favourite things of the upcoming patches. Even it was maybe 3 weeks ago, if that, I was saying how much this game needs the binoculars, because I was playing the simulator with Slick, and we were on that, what's that map? The one they added, Eastern Europe.
Yeah, Eastern.
And it's got that massive open field, and you need those binoculars. Like, when, I don't know if you guys have played Red Orchestra on the tanks, like, you
Yeah,
can
it's-
get out
yeah,
your
it's
tank
amazing.
and then use binoculars as tank
Yeah.
commander, and it's so fucking helpful, whereas it didn't have it on this, and so when they add this, it's really going to help spotting
It's-
tanks and
Especially on tank
improving.
destroyers.
Exactly.
Yeah, because the problem is, right now to zoom in, you have to turn your gun. And then
Exactly.
zoom in through the gun, and then you're like, oh, that's not an enemy, and then zoom to the left, and then drive
Yeah.
off.
And meanwhile, someone can just sneak up on your left while you're trying to look at targets to your right. And now you
Exactly.
can just stay still.
Sneak
stationary.
turret shot, yeah.
Yeah, like the less movement you have in a tank destroyer, the better your camouflage.
Exactly. This is especially true for tank destroyers. Like the just in the footage they use to show this off is, I think it's a SU-152 or an ISU-152. I might be wrong with the specific. I think it's an SU-152.
Yeah.
I think so,
but
yeah.
The thing is that the tank, I can see this tank sitting on Kuban, and it's kind of like hidden, and it's green. The forest and the ground is green, so hard to see. But if he wants to zoom in and check, like, if that's actually an enemy tank, that the turret that's there, or if it's just like a little like rock or a glitch or whatever, he actually has to turn his entire tank, and he could be, well, people will be able to spot him easier. But this time, just pop out binoculars and look around and zoom in, zoom out. And one more thing that I really am interested in, it might just be me trying to read too much, but the quote here is, on the battlefield, it is important not only to spot enemy movement, but also be able to warn teammates about impending danger. So does that mean that you can now like spot, like you can like say like in game, like spot them differently, like, or is it just like a way to make it more interesting?
Yeah.
Like that line kind of intrigues me.
yeah.
Maybe I'm just looking for too much,
I feel
don't know,
like
but-
I feel like what they're saying is just like you could tell your friends that there's an enemy there, or
Okay.
you could call it out easier. That's gonna help so much for when you're in the tank. Okay, you pull up your binocs, you're looking. Oh, there's a guy in this tree line, and then let's say there's no map or whatever. And your friend's like, what tree line? And then he can look from his position without turning his gun. And he can keep his gun on wherever he thinks he needs to keep it, you know what I mean? Because
Exactly.
I die a lot of times in Sim turning my turret around and getting shot in the side of the turret.
yeah,
And the strongest armor is in the front.
Good point. Yeah.
So, you keep all your armor in the front while you're looking around.
And it's especially another thing not only for tank destroyers, but also for like some, especially some of the like, I mean, every heavy tank. The heavier the tank, the slower the traverse rate of the turret. So instead of like having to turn all the way around and just have to find out, well, actually, that's not an enemy. That's just a crash down plane or whatever. You can now just quickly look, quickly zoom in, zoom out. Okay, that's a crash down plane, and then just continue on your merry road again.
I have something I think nobody's going to question yet. I have a question. Do you think that if your commander dies, that you could still use your binocs?
I've thought about that myself, actually.
People have been saying that the driver view is going to be disabled when the driver dies, but I don't know. That's a tough question.
I think that's a lot of effort they're not going to put in, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a ton of effort. Like, look. Your commander dies, right? He gets shot, and he's the only one who dies. And you can still operate the tank with that. Disable the binoc mode, so you have to use the gun, the
gun view thing, yeah.
Because that's how it would work in a real tank. If your commander dies next to you, you're the gunner. What you can only see out of your gun sight.
But that's maybe bringing the game to a little bit too much to a more real, like maybe a little bit too much towards.
I think that would be
tanks.
I don't think that would be bad actually, because look. You see a guy. You're in your tank. Let's say you're in I don't know. It's fucking a tank. I don't know. And you see an enemy tank, and all you can see is his turret, right? It's gonna make you want to shoot him in the turret more.
That makes sense.
Like pick your targets more, and it also adds another target.
But it isn't only the commander that can use a binocular in real life. If the commander gets knocked out, usually someone else.
Well,
if they really
obviously.
need the binoculars, the driver will stand up and just look from the.
Yeah.
What if the shot from the tank went through the binoculars and the binoculars are now shattered and are mixed in with the remainders of his face?
What if the commander popped up with his binocs and Vasily Sidestep shot through the lens,
Sniper Elite style,
through his sniper lens, and killed the commander? And now whenever you look, it's one side, so they just have to model the left side.
You're like Jack Sparrow, like the extendable.
So it turned into a periscope, and then you're gonna tape that periscope onto your 50 cal in the back of your Fury tank and kill a whole battalion of SS troops while you're in the middle of the field.
Guys, come on.
Guys,
and then,
do you like how this started off really serious and slowly just like deviated to let's just talk about random bollocks?
That's fine. We'll finish up. We'll finish up with the last addition that, well, I wouldn't say promise, but that they're going to put in, and it's the one with now you can actually operate your canopies. And I was like, well, that's why would you want that? And I read a bit about the forums, and people saying, well, it's useful because now, like in sim battles, like for example, you're heavily damaged. You really need to get this guy off your tail. You really need to like make that last maneuver, and you can't see him because he's right, like where that metal bar is in your cockpit. So you can quickly open up the cockpit. Or somebody else even said, what if you open your cockpit and the aerodynamics will change, which Gaijin already said. I think it even says it here. It will change the flight characteristics of the aircraft. So you can change your basically your flight model into, and an enemy will not know how to react, and maybe he will overshoot you or pass you or even crash into you, at least taking an enemy with you. But that, of course, is, speculation and maybe a little bit far-fetched. But
or you can open it and get out of your plane and then go cry in the tent because you don't want to fight against sabers in your 262.
It does say, like, you can't open your canopy at high speed because of the wind force, which is, I'm glad the Vince mentioned, like, you're not going to be able to open the canopy when you're going 800 miles per hour
in a saber.
I'm glad about that.
Well, the only, like, real use of it I can think of is when you get a fuel leak, like if you have the giant oil spill in front of you.
Yeah.
There are certain planes where that is useful. The Zero, it's going to be really useful. Because the Zero's cockpit, for all of you people who don't fly sim, is shit. It's like looking through a bunch of like fucking squares. It's so bad. I don't know.
It's true.
They didn't know how to model glass that wasn't a flat sheet, so it's just like blah, 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 blah. It looks like a fucking fly's eye, like all that shit. So it's like really hard to look out of. So if you're, and the Zero doesn't go fast, so you don't have to worry about killing yourself opening the cockpit. You pop that bitch open, you're turn fighting Corsairs all day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it depends
So
on how
that's-
much you change the fight characteristics.
It's helpful.
There-
And also, if you have a track AR like my boy Sherman here, you can lean your head out of the fucking plane.
Oh man, there is actually in the Coop. That's what they use to upload this COUB to that website of the Cube or Coub or whatever you want to call it of the cockpit lights. The guy actually opens up the canopy in that one, and you can hear like while he's flying, you can hear the
Yeah, you
wind.
hear the wind. It's
That's
great.
an
It sounds
awesome
great.
feature. That's just cool. You know, like stuff like that. And this might not be such a game changer as the Stuka D5 with the gun pods or the mouse with being a mouse, but I can definitely see this being a cool feature. And some people will make awesome cinematics. Opening a canopy and stuff like that. And actually, in the one picture, you can see I think it's one of the Kai 45s. God may know which one it is because I have no idea which one exactly it is of like the three there are. But you can actually see that the machine gunner.
Yeah, he has an
that
open
machine gunner
canopy too.
is also open. That's a pretty cool touch. Like you can communicate, screaming to each other, like both leaning out, like, "Hey, what are you doing back there? How's your donut?" That kind of stuff.
How's your sake? Mine's a little dry.
Exactly.
Here, have some of mine.
Got some more rice.
You're like dropping stuff out the window and he's catching it.
That sounds awesome. Like just rock binoculars and stuff.
And it's in the HE 112. Why would they pick that plane? I don't know.
Probably just because. Oh, okay.
No, I was agreeing with Slick. Like, that's the worst plane you could have picked.
Yeah, and the Yak 1. So it's the Yak 1. So far, it's the Yak 1, the Kai 40. I'm never gonna fly that fucking
Kai
plane,
40,
and then the
exactly.
HE 112.
25 co, I think.
BO. I wish it was the other HE 112s don't have canopies. Maybe they're just starting at the bottom, starting from the
I
bottom
think
over
they're starting
here.
at planes that would actually go slow enough to, but people still play it, like slow planes, but still usable.
It's probably like people that just get the game, can experience it too. Another thing that it's one of the last things I want to say about this because I'm actually kind of afraid of one thing, like that they promised bomber cockpits a long time ago.
Yeah.
And the only planes that have a cockpit aren't like the Tu-2s, which are dive bombers anyway. And the Stukas. So there's still a lot of catch up for them to do on like all those models for cockpits and stuff. So I hope this is not like a little like I don't want to call it a dead puppy, but like hey, here's a puppy. He's gonna live for about 3 months, and by that time, no one's gonna remember, and we're never gonna finish it. So that's the only thing which a Gaijin doesn't always deliver on. The promises with the RB with the battle rating sometimes with the bomber cockpits. I hope this is not one of those semi-dead puppies that in like 4 months, like, hey, where did those other cockpits for other 200 planes go? But we'll have
don't know
to
what
see.
you're talking about.
I don't think you can hold your breath on that. Like, I think it's going to take a long time until they put in the bomber cockpits.
But you have to realize, like the PR department over at Wargaming is bigger than the entire staff working for Gaijin. So I always have to put it into perspective also for myself. Like I'm like, guys, fix the battle ratings, but there's only like 10 people that actually, like, not the testers, but like 10 actual people or something like that. I mean, I talked to some of the guys in the forums about this. There's not a lot of people working on like every aspect on the game, so it's hard for them, and I get that, but it's also hard for them to deliver on promises. But I guess we're gonna have to see how that works out in about half a year from now when we do it like podcast number, I don't know, and we'll see if they have actually finally added bomber cockpits or dropping clowns from a B-17. I don't know, like we'll see what happens.
Toilets on a Sky Raider. Yeah, we got lights. We could see how fast we're going if we're gonna.
I think they're just trying to say that they're putting cherries on the cake right now.
Yeah, they're just teasing.
They're just teasing.
Maybe.
All right, in that case,
hold on. I do want to have one bonus topic. We're awesome. Real quick question. Not question. Well, yeah, the quick discussion. I thought about this last night, and I think that it would fix the game significantly. What if jet combat went up to a 10 BR?
Mm-hmm.
And it spaced the jet.
That's a big topic to do in 5 minutes.
No. It's real quick. It's real quick. Hold on.
It's a good topic.
Okay, look. Let's say the BRs of jets go from 6.3 to 9 right now. What if they added it to 10? I personally think that would space the jet combat out enough to fix it. Because
Yeah,
look, you
agree.
put Sabres and MiG-15s at the 10, CLs at 10, F-30 Sabres at 10, and then you go by 1 point every time. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
The,
Yeah,
the
that
maximum deviation is 1
makes
PR,
sense.
so you would have only the same planes fighting each other, and that's basically what it was before the battle rating system. That's what
Yeah.
they wanted to fix. So, like, you would go back to the ranking system with battle ratings. I don't think they would implement that.
What? It's as good as that sounds. Like I do agree. Like, and then you could have like those. You could basically have those set planes fighting each other. That's it. But the battle rating system, what they've got in mind is what they're planning. Notice how I said planning.
Yeah.
To do is setting planes what will just fight each other. So I assume something like a Tempest Mark II will only fight like a Bearcat and something around the area. So you won't get Spit Mark 9s fighting Bearcats, blah 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 blah. So that's what they're planning on doing. So maybe that would work. Like hopefully you'd only see
Yeah.
262 only fighting P80s or F80s. Because as much as I like the idea of having historical battle ratings like P51s fighting 262s,
I
it's
think
gonna
that's...
be fun for a week. It
Yeah.
might be-
User was moved out of your channel. User in your channel
Oh,
is
wow.
recording.
You won't still find it fun when someone like gets zoomed and you can't do anything about it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I feel it.
Okay, I think that's a topic for the next mainstream. Because
Yeah,
let's start
we
with
should
that.
we should not tire people out. You know, immediately the first podcast. So I want to thank obviously the listeners here for withstanding and sitting here for all this time listening to us whining about the game and how we think we should fix it, and also because of the awesome stuff they're gonna be adding, the mouse and the cockpit lights, and of course also the awesome Stuka gun pods. And in particular, I want to thank, of course, Jaggert's Mental Sick for attending and, being awesome and actually, helping me out sometimes when I had no idea what to do. This is going to be hopefully a weekly podcast. So hopefully we'll see you next week on Monday at 9/8/3 p.m.
Mouse hype!
Us hype.